Hi everyone, welcome to this month's Facts and Fun. If you'll remember, Facts and Fun is our preschool nonfiction program where we read a few of our nonfiction books from here at the library and do a few activities or crafts around that month's theme. This month's theme is worms. I bet you're wondering how I came up with that theme. Well, one day when it had rained a lot, I noticed there was a lot of worms on my driveway, and I was looking closely at them. And then I realized that I don't know that much about worms, and I was curious. And because I was curious, I went to look at some books at the library about worms. That's a great thing to do if you're curious about something. Come to the library and find some books about it, and then you'll know more about what you're wondering about. So today, since I was wondering about worms, we're going to learn a little bit about worms. Let's go ahead and start our first book. Our first book is called Earthworms, and it is by Megan Borgert-Spaniol. Earthworms are long, soft animals. Their bodies have many segments. Remember that about the segments. It'll come in on one of our activities. Earthworms are covered in small hairs. The hairs help them move. Did you know that earthworms have hairs? I didn't. Earthworms are found in forests, grasslands, and gardens. They live in soil. They stay in the damp soil during the day. Their bodies would dry up in the sun. Earthworms come to the surface at night. They also appear when it rains. That's like I said, they were all over the driveway after it rained. Sometimes danger waits at the surface. Earthworms are prey for birds, snakes, and other predators. Earthworms search for food at the surface. They bring bits of plants into their burrows. Earthworms also eat soil as they move underground. Their tunnels help the soil hold water. Earthworms bring healthy soil to the surface. This helps new plants grow. That's wonderful! Earthworms help our plants to grow. Isn't that neat? Now remember, we learned about earthworms having segments. Now let's do a little craft activity about earthworm segments. Okay, now that we've learned a little bit about worms, let's make our own worm out of Cheerios. In your kit, you should have a container of Cheerios that looks like this and a couple of brown pipe cleaners. Now, I'm going to just use some Cheerios out of a bag, but you can use yours out of your container. We are going to make worms out of Cheerios. Remember we learned in the book that worms have segments? And this looks like worm segments, doesn't it? So that's what we're going to do today. Now there are two different ways that you can do it. You can make a short worm that's this length, or if you wanted to, you could make a long worm that's all the way the length of that whole pipe cleaner. That's up to you. Let me show you how to make the short worm. You're going to start with a pipe cleaner and put one Cheerio on your pipe cleaner, right in the middle. See how it's right in the middle? And then you're going to bend it so that the two ends are together, like that. Now, from now on, you're going to put your Cheerios on both pieces of pipe cleaner at the same time. So it'll look like, see how I'm doing that like that? And you're going to bring it all the way down to that other one, like that. And you're going to keep putting them on over and over so that your worm has lots of segments. Do you see that? And then that one will turn out like this. How did I finish it off? I just twisted it at the end. See how I twisted it? So that the Cheerios won't come off. So that's how you can make a short worm, and you can bend them and do whatever you like because worms are kind of wiggly, aren't they? Now, if you want to do a long worm, you can use the whole piece of your pipe cleaner and put one of your Cheerios on the end and kind of bend that pipe cleaner over so that it doesn't slip off. So it looks like that. Can you see that? Okay. And then that way, you would put all of them on until you make this whole big long worm, and then you can make him wiggle and twist too. So you choose which one you want to do, and don't eat too many of those Cheerios because then you won't have enough worm segments to make your worm. So have fun with that. Let's read another book. Okay, I'm hoping that you didn't eat too many Cheerios so that you were able to make a couple of worms out of them. I hope it went well. Let's read another book. Now the word worm starts with W. It makes the W sound. So we are going to learn about the letter W. This is called my W sound box. W. This is what a W looks like. And this book is written by Jane Belk Moncure and illustrated by Rebecca Thornburgh. And this is a book called a rebus book. A rebus book has little pictures in it along with the words, and that helps you to read it. Little W had a box. I will find things that begin with my W sound, she said. I will put them in my sound box. Okay, in your kit, you have a big letter W. Can you get that out of your kit now? Every time I say a word that starts with the W sound, hold up that W. Okay, are you ready? All right, let's go. Little W went for a walk in the woods. She found woodpeckers and a woodchuck. Did she put them in her box? She did. Little W looked under some wood chips. She found lots of wiggly worms. In you go, she said. Little W walked to a well in the woods. She saw some water in the well. This may be a wishing well, she said. She looked all around the well. Guess what she found? A wand. Little W waved the wand and made a wish. I wish I could find more things for my box, she said. Just then, a weasel wiggled into the box, quick as a wink. A big wolf was after him. Little W waved her wand. I wish you would be a good wolf, she said. Are you getting all the W's? She put the wolf in her box with the weasel, the woodpecker, and the wiggly worms, and the woodchuck. Now the box was full. Little W found a wheelbarrow. Whee, she said. This is just what I need. She wheeled the wheelbarrow. Away they went, along a winding road to the water. Let's wade in the water, she said. But the wolf, weasel, woodpecker, wiggly worms, and woodchuck did not want to wade. They watched. Wow, said a walrus. You look wacky to me. You have funny feet. You look wacky to me, said Little W. You have funny whiskers. Little W put the walrus into the box. The walrus winked at the wolf. Little W went back to the water. The wind blew the waves up and down. Then she saw a big whale. The whale whistled. I wish I could put the whale in my box, but it is too big, she said. Little W waved her wand and found a big wagon. It was big enough for a whale. She put everything in the wagon and walked by a wall. What was behind the wall? Watermelons. Whoopee! Whooped the woodpeckers when they saw the watermelons. Let's have a watermelon party, said little W. And they did. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of W's. Did you hear all the W's in that story? All right, now I think we're going to make a little worm that can also make a W. Wow, that was a lot of W's, wasn't it? I hope you were able to hold up your W every time I said a W word, because worms starts with W, doesn't it? We're going to do a little bit with clay today to help you work on those fine motor skills in your fingers and also talk a little bit more about W's. In your kit, you'll have a little piece of modeling clay. It looks like this. Everybody has a different color and it's in its own little bag. Now, I just want to let the grown-ups know that the modeling clay is non-toxic. It comes from this company and it is non-toxic and it's safe for kiddos. So just wanted to let you know that in case you were concerned. All right, I'm going to use white. Oh, white starts with W too, doesn't it? You're going to take your modeling clay out of the bag. It's going to be kind of hard when you first take it out. So you're going to have to use your fingers and you're going to have to squish it. And this is going to make your fingers really strong. Now, if you only want to take a piece off of it, that's okay too. So you're going to squish it. And I'm going to suggest that you keep squishing it when we read the next book. But let me show you what you're going to do. You're going to squish it and then you're going to squish it in your fists until it kind of makes, I don't know, a long shape like this. And then on a surface, you're going to roll it with your hands. Now this is kind of hard to do. This takes a lot of strength too, so this is going to make your hands nice and strong too. So you're going to keep making it like this. See how I'm rolling it with this part of my hands? You could do both hands at once if you wanted to. And I bet you your grown-up knows how to do this too, where you start in the middle and you work your way out to the sides. Now this takes some practice, but I bet you can do it. Now, why are we making this? We are making a worm out of clay. You see how long it's getting? Can you see? Look at it. I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Now this is only part of my clay because I wanted to be able to do this quickly for you. But you can work on this for the whole time that we're reading the next book. So now I have this long worm of clay that looks like this. I'm going to take my W, remember my W. See, it's got arrows. It shows you how to make a W. But I'm going to lay my clay right on the W. Oh, I made it a little long. So I'm going to pinch off that piece that's too long. And look, I made a worm W out of clay. And that's what you can do while we're reading our next book. Now, can you do some other things with your clay? Of course you can. You can do whatever you'd like. Just remember to keep it in a bag that seals so that it stays soft. Have fun. Okay, we're going to read another book while you're working on softening that clay so that you can roll it out to make a worm so you can make your W. Pretty cool, huh? Our last book is called Wiggling Worms at Work, and it is by Wendy Pfeffer and illustrated by Steve Jenkins. Now keep working on that clay as you're listening. Down in the ground under your feet, thousands of worms wiggle around flower bulbs and tunnel under trees. They twist and turn, eating almost anything in their way. These wiggling worms are at work. Farmers plow their fields to loosen the soil. Crumbly soil lets the roots of plants spread out and grow. Worms also loosen the soil as they wiggle along. They are called nature's plows. As worms twist and turn, they push aside loose soil. This creates tunnels. Air flows along these tunnels. Rainwater trickles down. Roots drink it up. Moist ground helps plants grow better. We knew that, didn't we? Worms tunnel in hard-packed soil by swallowing it. The soil goes in the worm's mouth, slides into the crop, then passes down to the gizzard. So it goes into their stomach. They eat dirt. Worms do not have teeth. Mussels, fine grains of sand, and small stones in the gizzard grind the soil. So they've got sand and dirt. There's sand that grinds up the dirt in their stomach. Worms digest leaf and plant bits that are found in the soil, just as you digest a salad. What's left passes through a worm's body and comes out its tail end in the form of pellets, called worm castings. So worm poop is called worm castings. I did not know that. These castings make good plant food. They help fruits and vegetables grow bigger and better. Sometimes worms crawl above ground. When they tunnel back down into the ground, they pull dead leaves and plants down with them. These plants make the soil better as they rot. Seeds come down too. Some of these seeds will send out roots. Seedlings sprout. Worms help new plants begin to grow. Worms can wiggle, twist, turn, and even tie themselves in knots because they have no backbones. Their soft bodies are made up of rings or segments. We learned that. These segments act like the coils on a slinky toy. They let the worm bend. A worm has no legs, but 8 bristles under each segment act like little legs. They help the worm move. Strong muscles allow the worm to stretch out its front end. It becomes long and thin. Then the worm fastens its front bristles to the soil, and the back end slinks up, making the worm short and fat. The worm wiggles along, stretching and slinking, stretching and slinking. With all its wiggling, twisting, and turning, it's a wonder a worm knows where it's headed. It has no eyes, no nose, no ears, and hardly any brain at all. But a worm knows what's happening nearby. It feels vibrations on the ground and senses a hungry robin. Quickly, the worm slips back into its burrow. Hiding is the only way it can protect itself from its enemies. Worms also hide from the sun. They must live in damp soil since they breathe air through their moist skin. So they breathe through their skin. That's interesting. In the hot sun, their skins dry up and they can't breathe. Sometimes worms crawl to the surface to find food. They select dead and decaying plants to drag back to their burrows. These plants contain bacteria that worms eat. Healthy plants do not. Worms pick leaves with pointed ends rather than round ones. No one knows why. Worms eat fungi and mold. They slurp the hair-like strands of mold the same way you might slurp strands of spaghetti. Ew. Worms eat at the entrance of their burrows. Then each worm covers any leftover plants with its castings. Remember, castings is worm poop. This pile of worm castings is called a midden. It hides the top of the worm's burrow and acts like a door to keep out bad weather and rain. In spring, before the weather warms, worms wiggle to the surface to mate. Worms are different from most other animals. Each worm is both male and female, but each one still needs a mate. After mating, each worm crawls back into its burrow. When the weather cools, a ring-like cocoon forms near the head of each worm that has mated. Slowly, the worm begins to move backwards. The cocoon inches forward on the worm's body just as a ring on your finger would move. The cocoon passes over openings in the worm's body. Up to 30 eggs slip out of the openings and into the cocoon. I also did not know that worms lay eggs. Did you? In a few minutes, the cocoon slips off the worm's head just as the ring would slip off your finger. The ends of the cocoon close. Inside the cocoon, the eggs are fertilized. In about 3 weeks, the eggs hatch. Out of about 30 eggs, only 3 or 4 wormlets emerge from each cocoon. So a baby worm is called a wormlet. They look like tiny pieces of cotton thread, less than an inch long, but they are fully developed worms and live completely on their own. They do not need their parents' help. The wormlets inch along, finding bits of dead plants to eat, dragging them to their tunnels and covering any leftovers with their castings. They wiggle underground, loosening the soil and making tunnels. Even tiny wormlets help the soil. These babies grow fast. In 6 weeks, they are adult worms. In winter, the soil near the surface freezes. The worms plug up their tunnels and move down to warmer soil. They stay there until spring. Then they wiggle up, tunneling, twisting, and turning until they're right under your feet again. Vegetables and flowers grow better. Trees grow bigger. Grass grows greener because there are thousands of wiggling worms at work. Wow. Worms do a lot, don't they? I really enjoyed learning more about worms today. I hope you did too. There's one more book I'd like to share with you. We're not going to read it today, but it's one that you might want to check out from the library yourself. It's called This is a Book to Read with a Worm. And inside it, it has all kinds of activities that you can do if you have a worm with you. So you could dig up a worm from your garden, with your grown-ups' help, of course, and be very careful with it. And there's all kinds of activities in this book that you could do with it. That would be fun. Speaking of fun, I hope you had fun today learning about worms. I know I did. I hope you had fun making your segments on your worms out of Cheerios. And I hope your fingers are nice and strong from squishing that clay and then rolling it into a worm so that you can make a great big W. I hope you had a good time today. Thanks for listening. See you next month. Bye.